the support throughout all the years. But wanted to start by sharing that aging gracefully is never easy, but to just be alive and age is quite a blessing. I want to tell you that through it all, of course, there's going to be the ups and downs. That's life. That's the journey. And today I just want to share a little bit about my journey. So y'all know my 20s, I was very active in the music business, a little past my 20s, but I was very active. And at 20s, I was, a go-getter, and I had a lot of uncharted territory, but I was very focused on being the recording artist that I had started to be. But when I reached my 30s, or very early 30s, I had a spiritual awakening, and I realized that there was much more to life for me and that needed to be fulfilled, that nothing else outside of myself, not a relationship, not friends, even though they were all blessings and some of them not so blessings. All of them were important to my life, but they were people or things or places that could never fulfill a space in me that was already there, and God has given all of us that only He can fulfill and fill. So my 30s, I gave my heart to the Lord, and I had to start doing, a lot of self-evaluation, getting closer to God, learning some things about myself that I didn't like, things that weren't healthy, things that I wanted to change. I learned that life is a process, it's a journey, and it is one that's going to have its ups and downs, as we know. And while in my 20s, all I thought about was myself, me, myself, and I more than anything. In my 30s, I started getting a little bit more serious about starting the road and discovering of what God and who God wanted me to be inside. And while I wasn't a bad person, we got good and bad, as we say, I was not also a saint. I wasn't perfect, and I still am not. And I made bad choices, as many of us have. And through those choices, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about sometimes how we blame others for certain things, and we have a part to do with it many times. Not all times, many times. But there are times that we don't have a part to do with it, and we have been affected in a negative manner by someone else's doing. I get that, either with family or friends. But in my 40s, I became a quite confident woman. I was already walking in the Lord for a few years at that time. And I knew what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want. And I also got into health, being more healthy. And I was more thinner at that time as well. I still eat healthy, but as we age, some of us women, we have a hard time keeping the weight down. Even if we eat healthy, it's more about movement and exercise. So in my 40s, I found myself knowing what I wanted, knowing what I didn't want, but I became a little distracted because I wanted to be married at a certain age, something I had already been thinking about in my 30s, but I hadn't met the person. And I wasn't just the kind of person that was going to force an issue or kind of react in the manner of what I did when I was in my 20s and more immature. So it was more about a waiting period and trusting God. And that wasn't always easy. It wasn't always easy at all. So I didn't get married till I was 49. And I met my husband just a year before that at 48. So in my 40s, I had this notion of what I wanted, not realizing that it was more about what God felt I needed. And that's what I ended up having. But during the interim, before I even knew who my husband was, I made my mistakes even while I was walking in the Lord, and I got impatient and I made bad choices. It's very easy to regress to our old behavior, even when we're Christians. And when that happens, it doesn't happen suddenly. It happens because little by little, we have stopped trusting God in a certain situation in our lives. And we start taking matters into our own hands. And therefore, if there's one way you used to do things, it kind of regrets to the same thing. So how do I keep myself focused? I keep myself focused now after learning the hard way in many circumstances in my journey, in my walk. I keep my focus by keeping my focus and redirecting it towards God. What I want is not always what I need, but what I get when I trust God is always the best. So now I remember in my 50s, I was already married. I had been married for a year. Had gone back to New York, and my husband and I threw this 50th party in a club, and I enjoyed that birthday. It was the first snowstorm that year. But yet all the new friends showed up. All the fans that had become friends showed up. We had a wonderful time, and it was like putting closure to my season in my life, my years, my being born in New York, and closing that chapter and moving adelante, as the show says, to move forward with God. And on this show, I hope that you will move forward with me as I encourage you, but I'm always going to point you to God and to try to encourage you. So at 50s, I was married, and I was newly married. So you can imagine 10 years of that journey has been like everybody else's relationships, bumpy, ups, downs, disagreements, because while we are like-minded in the ways that matter in our faith, we are not like-minded in everything, because we are two individuals, my husband and I, and therefore we process differently. And those are things we learn, but with the love of God in us, we make it through a day at a time. And I've learned too, since I was in my 50s, to evaluate and check myself before I start pointing fingers and thinking that I can change someone or someone can really change me. It has to be something that I desire, because I desire to please God. And I want to be a better wife. I want to be, first of all, a better servant to the Lord Jesus. So it is not easy, but it's been worth it. Every step of the way, I have grown so much and continue to grow a day at a time, and hope to be able to continue to apply that wisdom into any decision making that I make, that I will always point towards God. Whenever, which I have, looked the other way, because some things in the natural seem impossible, but I've learned that with God, they're possible. And even when we learn that lesson in other parts of our lives, it's very strange how I can very easily forget that at the moment and not realize that if God saw me through that, he will see me through this. And I never, have to think that I'm going to get less than what I wanted, but instead I'm going to get better than ever. And it's what I needed. So I want to encourage you today to embrace your aging and hopefully let go of any regrets or any unforgiveness that you might have, even for yourself or for others, because it's only going to bog you down. We have but a moment, in a sense, as we get older, it seems to accelerate. In my 20s, I wasn't thinking about, anything else but just being me, discovery, and just me. And in my 30s, I was going head on with God and still pushing through to have a renewal of my mind as we continue to have daily and just continue to press forward. But as you get to 40s and 50s and 60s, as I am now, it seems like every day goes faster. And I made a conscious decision many years ago, never to live with regret, never to just embrace what the journey was and the choices I made that brought me to where I'm at today, but a better and a wiser woman. So I encourage you, whether you're a man or a woman, to please live your life without regrets and allow the Lord to heal you in those areas where you might need to be healed, as we all have areas. When the pandemic came, I struggled a lot, and some things were magnified in me that needed to be redirected to God again. And I have been working on that. And therefore, I will continue to work on it, as I have a therapist as well. And I am working from home. And I was grateful that I've been working from home since then and continue to. So I want to thank you all. It's happy birthday to me. And it's December 12th, 2023, and I turned 60. Take care of yourself, stay encouraged, eat healthy. I'm going to have to get one of those little treadmills that go under the desk so that I can keep moving, because I've realized that I am fatigued when you work and you sit all day and you don't walk like we did in New York, and I don't do that here. I tend to get tired too easy when I go shopping, and that is not good, and I don't like it. What can I do about it? I can start moving while I'm working, even though I work for like 9 hours a day. I have to take the time to keep myself moving, even if it's walking back and forth in a little treadmill. So thank you. Stay encouraged. God bless you. And as I say at the end of every podcast and every video, And happy birthday to all the December birthdays. God bless.